What's good, people? Today we're in Brooklyn, New York City, and the kind people at Books and Magic have allowed us, they close down the stores to let us film in this beautiful space. I mean, look at this. Today's episode is so dope. I've got a good friend of mine, a New York Times best-selling author, and I couldn't be even more honored, you know what I mean, to be able to capture that conversation, and I hope you guys enjoy it, man.
Welcome.
Pleasure.
You're in the hood right now, bro, of Cobble Hill. This is one of the hardest hoods in Brooklyn. Cobble Hill. No, I'm joking.
Bro, you should see my face, Jay. You see my face, I'm like, where you got me? You see my face,
You
bro.
see the cafes out there, bro. You see the prep school kids. It's a nice place to live. It's a nice place to be.
Books are magic.
Books
yeah,
are
bro,
magic.
and like these people have shown, this bookshop is beautiful, bro.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, these are your people. I mean, they show
Shout out
love.
to Emma. Emma
Yeah.
Straub. Emma is one of the realest. Her last book, This Time Tomorrow. Emma and I have something coming out together, I believe in February. It's a little cameo type thing. Just stay glued to Netflix and you'll see.
I said Netflix, like
Netflix!
Just Netflix.
Netflix!
Is that where we've gone here?
I'm making it sound bigger than it is, bro.
Yo, man,
we did a
bro.
little cameo.
Bro.
We might be in there for 3 seconds. Someone running past. It'll blur. You'll be like, was that Mateo? You won't even know.
Bro, I don't care, bro. You went for, you're an author,
Sure.
and you're on Netflix. How many authors are gonna end up in a brief snippet? Do you get what I'm saying?
Word, yeah. I'm grateful. I'm for real grateful,
Yeah.
bro. Like having this variety of experiences is something that I hoped for, but nothing that I could actually define. Like if you came to me years ago when I was in my parents' crib, tapping away on Black Buck by myself, locked in, and said, do you want to be in a movie? Like, do you want to do a cameo? Do you want to meet this person? Do you want to receive this type of email from someone sending you a lot of love for the way that your book impacted them? I would say, I don't even know what that looks like. Let me just get back to this work. So while all of these cool types of things have been happening over the past few years, before the book came out, since the book came out, I'm grateful for everything every day. I can't lose sight of what matters most, which is the work.
Yeah.
Gotta do the work.
Yeah. And
The cameo isn't gonna help me write books.
Yeah.
You know?
And bro, and when you talk about the work, I think you changed my perspective on writing, the process of writing.
Wow.
Because you said to me, and I'd love for people to know, you was like, I have a routine. I wear the same clothes every day when bro, you told me that. I wear the same clothes, I eat from the same bowl. Hey, to talk about it, bro, that shit blew my mind.
Yo, Suli, you scare me with how active of a listener you are.
Oh, man.
You're bringing up things that we had on conversation, but we were walking around London for hours.
Yeah, walking for
We were
ages.
trekking for a
Yeah.
minute, especially over the past few months, have realized that I don't really have anything to be embarrassed about as far as the truth of my day-to-day is concerned. As long as it's true and you're not hurting anyone, I don't believe you have anything to feel guilty of or embarrassed about. And I had to come to terms with that in terms of my own creative process and myself as a person as well, right? There's always room for self-improvement if you're being honest with yourself. But when it comes to something as my routine, I was talking to some homies, I think it might have been the BBC or somewhere. They were dying from laughter. They were like, what? Because the routine gets stranger and stranger. And I didn't get embarrassed, but I'm like, damn, this is really some wild stuff. I don't know if I want to be out there sharing it because it makes me seem super eccentric. But basically, and let me back up real quick, because on this writing journey, being able to meet cool people like you has definitely been a highlight. We're talking about cameos and all this stuff. But Suli and I, we just linked in London when I was there last year during like a semi-lockdown. And again, we were trekking around London for a few hours, got to know each other, got to connect.
And this guy put me on game.
And but you inspired me as well with everything that you're doing, bro, over there, the spoken word, the writing. So
please, it's cool.
but you know what it is. I wanna let the viewers know that the relationships that you form with someone that are genuine, that are authentic, off rip, you just meet them and you feel that you click. There's no price to that because there's a lot of fakery in these industries. There's a lot of smiling so that you get the blurb. There's a lot of dapping so that you get the picture and then you get the proximity. But when you meet real people, it means a lot. So I just want to tell you in person, publicly. But you already know it privately.
It's love, man, because I feel like the way I came across your book is my friend was working in publishing at the time. And I don't know if you did a Zoom call or something, and she was like, oh, this guy, he's so cool, like he's so laid down, relaxed, laid back, so honest, you should check out his book. So I saw the cover and I was like, oh, this seems interesting. So I read it, you know what I mean? And I was like, fuck with this guy. And I saw you coming to London, and I was like, yo, I gotta hit you up. So that's generally how it came about. But let's get into the routine.
The routine, bro. We didn't forget. Don't worry about it. So, all right. So the night before I write, right? I'm fortunate now to be a full-time writer. I've been a full-time writer since I got my first deal in August 2019. I had a similar routine in the past when I was consulting with tech startups across North America, but now this is more or less how it goes every weekday. I write every weekday. So the night before, even though I know I'm writing the next day, I say, what are we doing tomorrow? And I say, I'm going to go write. I'm going to write. I'm going to focus on this aspect of this project because it's no longer just books. It's other things, short stories, screenplays, what have you, essays, of course. Next day, wake up. Take my vitamins. I got ashwagandha, I got moringa, stuff like that. And then I'm going to meditate for 30 minutes. And the meditation is not clouds passing in front of your mind. There's nothing wrong with that. Or focusing on your inhale and your exhale and making sure that they're measured. I've done all of that. I know all of that. And it's not overrated by any means. But for me, what works is going through a series of check-ins. Who did I help recently? How have I been creatively productive? What's going on over here? How am I feeling emotionally? How's my family? Like, this is a check-in that I go through for 30 minutes, and it grounds me. Just starting the day, sitting on my carpet, silent. After that, I do the hygiene thing, and then I come out. And if I'm writing a novel, you brought up how I wear the same thing. If I'm writing a novel, I got a uniform of sorts. I'm not wearing the same clothes every day.
I know. Sorry,
No. But it's like ba 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 ba. If I'm writing a novel, if not, I could be dressed like this. So then it's breakfast, and breakfast I am eating the same thing, bro. I'm making a waffle. I'm making a waffle, and the waffle is either gonna be lemon or it's gonna be cinnamon. I used to have this brand called Vans, and I'd have these frozen waffles, and then my mom was like, yo, you gotta upgrade. So she got me a Cuisinart waffle maker, started doing that. And there's a plate and a knife and a fork. The whole thing is just, and I hate to give into the cliche, but like Steve Jobs knowing he was gonna wear a black turtleneck and blue jeans, or Pavlov, right? Homie who made sure that his dogs knew when it was feeding time, because he trained them. So that's just me doing that to myself, where it's just automatic, and I'm priming my mind. So I eat, and then I'm going to prepare my drink. My drink of choice is yerba mate. For some people it's coffee, for some people it's tea. Some people don't have a drink of choice. For me it's yerba mate.
What is that?
It's a South American beverage made from the crushed up leaves of a tree. And you put it into typically a gourd, like a calabash gourd, which supposedly floated from Africa to the Americas. And the gourd is also called the mate. You put the leaves in there, cold water, hot water, not boiling, and then you drink it through what's called a bombisha, a filtered metal straw. And that's the traditional way of making it. You can use other means of drinking it, tea bags and so forth, but it's important to distinguish that it's not a tea, even though people call it as a tea, especially for folks in the States and UK and what have you. Also grounding me, I'm quiet, I'm not bumping music or anything, I'm just in a meditative state, and then I sit down, and only then do I typically respond to texts or emails. I'll respond to a couple, not even a lot. Phone's off. I throw the phone behind me. It's on my bed. It's under my pillow. I can't even see it. It's not going back on. I'm not looking at email again. And now I'm focused. I'm keyed in. But what I'm keyed in on, and again, it's because I got this type of time. Like, people, if they want to try to replicate this, take what you can. But take what you can and apply it to your own time constraints and responsibilities. Now I'm gonna watch music videos and movie trailers for like 2 hours, bro. And your cousin's off screen. Shout out to your cousin and everything he's doing in Ghana, Ground Up Charlie. He asked how I'm so tapped in, right, with the UK music and other scenes. It's because I'm on YouTube for 2 hours every day. I'm watching these videos, and it's not just like I'm watching TV. I'm getting inspiration from them. I'm understanding the artistry what went into it, and I'm also finding new people, and I am not judging anyone. Some people that I am now a fan of, at least their videos, I'm not bumping their music all the time, that I wasn't inclined in the past, was like Lil Baby. Someone like Polo G. Some of these people, I'm like, yo, Lil Baby's hard. Lil Baby's hard, and I'm watching his videos, and I watched the documentary, so it's introduced. But the point is, it's not judging. It's not judging and consuming, and then consuming with a critical lens, and not critical in the negative sense, but understanding what you like and what you don't like. This is all priming me up to do the work and to better understand my own work. So after I've done that, I might listen to 10, 15 minutes of music, get a little loose. I'll move around a little bit. And then finally, it's time to write. So that's a bit of the routine, right? And this gets me to a place where the inner and the external critics are gone, where I am free of judgment of myself, where it seems as though reality has dissolved and it's just myself and whatever I'm writing. And I'm in there for however long. Sometimes it's 2 hours, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. Back when I was writing Black Buck and I wasn't writing full time, I'd be writing 3 hours at a clip, 4 hours. These days it's a bit different because I'm doing it every weekday
you're getting more, you're getting more volume, you're getting more out of it.
And this is all with the aim of finishing, right? You don't have a book unless you finish a book. A book is not 20 pages of a draft. A book is not 50 pages of a draft. A book is a finished book that you can then revise. And you have some people who revise every day. I tried that with my first manuscript, and it feels like you're walking 5 steps
and you take
the next day, and right. And that for me, I wanna trust myself. I wanna get to the end, and then I can use my mind to revise. It's like an open book test. So while my routine sounds wild, someone once told me that's just an exercise in procrastination. For me, it's not. I'm waking up. I'm waking up my creative senses physically.
And the result speaks for itself. You know what I mean? You've got a book, New York Times best-selling book. So where you know what I mean? I mean, I was listening to Tim Grover. He coached Michael Jordan for many years. And he is like anal in every single detail. You know what I mean? And he'd say he'd stop after the games, and he'd watch the video of the entire game, and he'd watch where Michael bounced the ball, how many times he bounced the shot with one hand, how much weights they could lift on his left hand the next day and the right day. And so he'd do that every single game. You understand? And I think he's a big advocate that in the details, the routine and those tiny details is what breeds like superstars. You get what I'm saying?
Well, it's what works for me, brother, but also my way is not the only way. I know some writers, prolific writers, who will wait for when inspiration strikes, but they're not writing for 2 hours, they're writing for 8 or 9 and 10,000 words, 15,000 words. You have to find, and I'm talking to the viewers, not you, right? And I know I've been staring at the camera a little bit because I want to connect with people.
Bro, this is the community. You can stare at it.
You have to find what works for you, and you find what works for you through experimentation, trial and error. I tried to write in coffee shops. Didn't work. I tried to write in libraries. Didn't work. What worked for me was being in an environment that was comfortable, at least in my surroundings, while having a routine that would enable me just to get down and do the work and focus. But find what works for you. Again, experiment, trial and error, and then go do that. I know my routine sounds a little, sounds like a lot to some people, but for me, it works, and I'm grateful for it. And whenever I need to tweak it, I tweak it. I'm a results-oriented individual, but I can't get caught up solely in the product, in the commodity, in the final result. Because so much of the work is happening that people don't see. I am, yes, at my desk working on things that people won't see for years. People may never see. Because I could be taking a risk, and the way that I write is I write in a vacuum. I'm not passing like 10 pages of a book to someone and then 20 pages. I'm writing in a vacuum. And the good thing about that is that helps me hone my vision. It helps me become the expert on whatever I'm working on. The bad thing is that I could be an expert of something that's actually just not working. I could give someone 300 pages, 350 pages, and I'm the type of person where I'm very open to feedback. I'm not dismissive of what others have to say. Even when people were given 101 opinions on Black Buck, in the beginning, I was definitely consuming everything and trying to see what I can learn from the positive and the more critical and everything in between. And then after a minute, I was just getting diminishing returns, so I stopped. The point being is that if I have a 350-page novel that I wrote in a vacuum, this first draft, and I share it with someone, and they're like, nah, I don't know if this is it, or this part is it, or this, that, and the other, I am going to take that to heart. My first thought isn't, screw them. They don't know. I own the vision.
You better so much into it on an emotional
But
level.
but also, who am I sharing that with? I'm sharing that with someone whose opinion I trust and who can actually help me. I'm not sharing it with a random person to get their opinion from. The feedback that we receive is critical to a work and to what resonates with us. And oftentimes we're giving into feedback from 1,000 strangers who don't know what we're doing or don't know our intentions. So for me, you and I discuss this, the F word, focus. If I feel as though I'm getting pulled into, again, 1,001 opinions on social media, I'm just getting off.
Put me onto that, you know what I mean? I'm doing lots of different things and I'm like, I need to write, I need to work on this manuscript. And you was like, listen, there's a lot of things you're juggling, you got to cut a lot of them out. And it was hard to hear, but it was the best advice, you know what I mean?
And it's hard to do. But the thing about it, right, is I haven't been on social media for maybe 2 or 3 days just because I felt internally, it wasn't even something super conscious. I was like, I'm just not feeling this right now. It's just a lot. I'm good. Boop, turn it off. You can hit me up because you have my number. I can hit you up. I can talk to my parents. I can talk to my close friends. I can link with people in the physical world. And what that is a reality check to a certain extent because boop, I'm just not looking at it, and that whole world doesn't exist.
Crazy,
and it's not to say it's not real,
but
because it has real world byproducts, but it has no bearing on this. And social media is cool for different things, but I'm enjoying this right now.
I have such a great quote. No two people have ever read the same book. In the sense that we all see the world differently. Do you understand? And then that same sense, the philosopher said, none of us have an accurate perception of the world because it's always filtered through our emotions and how we see it. So meaning that you actually create your own world. You know what I mean? So it's like, right now, me and you are in this world. The moment I turn on my phone, I bring another reality into it.
That's right,
And I think it's scary, but it's beautiful at the same time. Do you get what I'm saying? Because you have so much control. Let's talk about books, bro. Let's talk about more books, bro. Let's go. Bro, so with all these books, I want to know, big up the owner.
Shout out to Emma.
Thank you so much, Emma, for letting us
Colson
use your
Whitehead.
Oh, bad boy.
This was the first Colson Whitehead that I read, Sag Harbor. I read it in college, and it just connected me to him and his work. And Colson Whitehead, I mean, thank you, Mr. Whitehead, for giving me a blurb on Black Buck. I really, really, really appreciate it. I definitely know a lot of people picked it up because of your blurb. Colson Whitehead,
he's a bad boy.
Aside from winning 2 Pulitzers and Underground Railroad and all these things, bro, you look at these books. This is about a young black man who has a beach house on Sag Harbor, Long Island, but he was raised in Manhattan. This is the Underground Railroad, where he's talking about enslavement, but he turned the Underground Railroad into a real railroad. He got Zone 1. I've actually never read this one. I think it's like an apocalyptic zombie type of a joint. And then you got the Nickel Boys, the Dozier School, 2 young men at this school in Florida, reformatory school, and the horrible things that take place there. The Intuitionist, my God, Apex Highs the Hurt, about a nomenclature consultant. This man's going around naming a bunch of things and getting into who knows what. The Intuitions, bro. So point being is me just riffing off all of this is not to show you that I've read Colson Whitehead, but to say that he is versatile. My man has so many different forms, and for me, I would like to do the same.
100%.
Just writing what comes to you and mastering your craft to the point where it can be manifested in so many different
lenses. I mean, the different protagonists, different genders, you know what I mean? They're all different, like coming from different perspectives. No, he's a bad boy, right? What book did you read that kind of got you on writing? Because you was in tech, you know what I mean? What book was the transition? Was there a book that was like, yo, I can actually do this? Not because it wasn't good, but it gave you that kind of like... No, because it's no, but it gave you that kind of like, wow, like, you know, this is the world I want to walk into.
Hold up, what's that? Whose name is on that?
Oh, whose name is that?
I give a little blurb. I've never met Laura Williams. She might be a UK writer actually, but I gave a blurb for this book actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, deliciously unpredictable. That whole blurb thing is a whole other world, bro.
Tell me about it though.
Blurbing is a way of paying it forward, right? We were just talking about Colson White had given me a blurb.
Yeah.
Blurbing is also a business in some ways. There's definitely people that are on some, and this has only happened to me once, and it wasn't even really someone entrenched in the publishing industry who's like, yo, just read a couple pages and give some words. And I was like, nah, I don't do that.
Yeah.
Anything I'm putting my name on, I gotta see it, you know, I gotta read it, and I gotta feel it, and then give you some words.
Yeah, it's a novel.
There's definitely people like not reading the books and just giving their blurbs and this, that, and the other. But for me, blurbing, right, giving the few lines on the front, or if you make the front, or the back to go on a book to help them out, is a way of paying it forward, is a way of lifting up other writers and their work, and just doing what other people have done for me. At the same time, it helps me connect with different editors. It helps me see who's out there, what people are writing, what people are buying. But first and foremost, it's a way to pay it forward, man, and be able to see the new generation of writers, or even established writers, and what they're coming out with. So when you have a book and it gets a little buzz, then you start getting an influx in your inbox, bro. Or some people will be bold enough just to send books to your house or your parents' house, whatever address they can find.
But you know what's dope? Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, it's good, bro.
Bob Lefetz, I remember he's like one of the biggest writers online for the past like 30.
Did we talk about him?
Yeah, I said he mentioned.
Yeah,
bro. I mean,
you told me that, and I connected with him.
His newsletter is one of the biggest newsletters in the world. Like, everyone knows the Lefetz letter. Yeah. And I just remember opening it one day and just seeing your name. Your name was there, and he was like, "This is one of the best books I've read." You know what I mean? And when you talk about paying it forward, I mean that's a huge cosign, you know what I mean?
Huge.
Like just in terms of like his leverage and the fact that you was able to connect with him, you know what I mean? We all connected with him on that level.
And I appreciate it because he was a genuinely cool guy when we were emailing back and forth. We were talking about snowboard and skiing and all of that. Yeah. So a lot of people do buy off the strength of a blurb. But when you're blurbing, you know, you're staking your reputation to a certain extent, especially if the blurb is a little bit hyperbolic. I found that, and this is going to come as no surprise to a lot of people, in the States we're very hyperbolic. We like to exaggerate. Everything is the biggest, the fastest, the smoothest. Right?
So,
I found that people in the UK are a little bit more reserved with their blurbs. They're like, you know, this really struck me to my core and it was a moving piece. Where I'm like, woo! Buy this book! It's the best thing you'll read! Right? But point being is that if you front a little bit and then the people who mess with you or know your name read this book and they weren't feeling, and then there's this pattern, right? It's just like, there needs to be integrity. That's what I'm saying. And I think that, you know, people have to understand why they're giving a blurb or why they're requesting a blurb, because it's just, you know, easy to throw your words on some book without thinking. But back to the question of, you know, books that I read that made me think that I could do this. I'm not going to say that there was one book. I'll be completely honest. There were books that were instrumental to me being able to write Black Buck and me feeling as though I could write. Many being James Baldwin growing up.
Course,
right? Like when I was writing seriously mid 2016, of course I thought about James Baldwin because he made me upset. Every time I was read his book right here in the subways when I was in college, I would be tight for at least a week or two looking around.
It's like when you watch a movie, it's like when you watch Roots, you just get,
you know. Okay, so I don't even have to get explicit with it, but I will. It had me looking at white people different. I would read James Baldwin and I would be looking around just like I was upset and feeling that emotion, multiple emotions from his work made me say, you know, I want to be able to do the same. I'm not going to say I read James Baldwin and I thought that I could imitate him, right? But other books that helped me was Plot and Structure.
Oh, great
That was a book I had read it after my first manuscript that I wrote, which wasn't for Black Buck. It was a completely different book in 2016. I read Plot and Structure by James Scott Bell. This book helped me learn how to write a coherent novel, but there's also a lot of advice in there. There's a lot of motivation, a lot of inspiration, and I was reading this book and doing the exercises while traveling, and then I rewrote my first book, and the second book was plotted out from beginning to end, but it didn't have that verve. It didn't have that vigor, and it didn't go anywhere. I felt as though that book, you know, it was too clean, too sterile. I had the different priorities in my mind, perhaps the wrong priorities of like, I need to get in the industry, need to get an agent, get a book deal, and I've finally written something very clean and coherent. And that book didn't work out. So now I'm at creative rock bottom around November 2017, and another book that helped me. Shout out to this good white man, Stephen King. I read On Writing.
Oh,
and On Writing, right? Many writers say, of course, they have that reaction because it's such an incredible book where he is dispensing no nonsense advice while also talking about himself and his own journey. So that book was critical.
It's a great book, man.
And then I read The Sellout by Paul Beatty, and that book that won back then was the Man Booker Prize. It is so wild. Language, plot, character. And I read it and I said, damn, I feel as though this is giving me permission to go as hard as I want to go hard with Black Buck. And I spoke to a writer. I ran into writer Jason Reynolds. Shout out to Jason Reynolds.
Oh, big writer as well. Yeah, huge.
Also been instrumental to my journey.
Crazy,
Jason has helped so many writers, way more than the people that are talking about Jason. Right, he has touched the lives of so many writers and would-be writers, and not to mention
you actually put me onto his stuff. I'd seen it about, but you actually put me onto his stuff.
Jason's a real one, right? And this is before I really knew Jason. I ran into him in McNally Jackson. I'd seen him the night before at Bowery Poetry Club with Mahogany Brown, and I'm like, hey man, can I buy you a cup of coffee? And he's like, yeah. So I'm talking to him, and I'm like, have you read Paul Beatty? He's like, of course. Jason has read everything.
Yeah, what?
And I'm talking about everything, even like canon that many people today don't want to get into. Faulkner, all of these people. Jason has,
it shows in his skill.
Jason has read it all, right? Because he's a man of craft, among other things. So I was talking to him about it, and he said, yeah, man, that's a wild book, but understand you have to be good enough to pull that off. And just hearing those words helped me realize, like, yeah, bro, you can't just write wildly. You can't just write the most bombastic things ever. You have to tie it together in a way where it'll actually impact people and be coherent. So those books and many more helped mold me into the writer who I was becoming before I even wrote Black Buck. When I was writing Black Buck, I read 60 books that year, which for me was a lot. I was going to readings here in New York City. I would commute in. I'd watch films. I'd watch documentaries. I'd even go to plays. And it's similar to what I mentioned earlier. I was no longer just consuming music and then would talk to my brother and be like, that shit was whack. It would more so be like, I like this part. Wasn't really feeling this part, liked that part, being able to break things down critically.
It's interesting. Malcolm Gladwell says that. He says that it's easy to criticize something, innit? But he goes, it's harder to look at something and trying to understand what the person was trying to do and then give him perspective from there. He said it's easy, and I think that's such an important part of the artistic process. Being able to look at stuff and see what elements of it you resonate with and why you don't resonate with the other parts. What's your opinion on book talk? You were just telling me about bookstagrammers and so what's your opinion on book talk?
Or anything that promotes reading is amazing in my book. So book talk is great. It's also bringing books back that were published and might have not gotten a lot of shine. I think that there needs to be diversity in all of these ways that books are being promoted. And in terms of the books that are even reaching a lot of these younger folk that are consuming and then crying on camera and all these types of things, or not even just that, but discussing them critically at times too. So again, I'm not here to knock it, but there always, I believe, has to be a diversity of thought, a diversity of types of writers that are being read and celebrated. And to keep it a buck, that has not been the case up until this point. Right, you have a lot of people that are promoting these types of books. An article came out last week about how the New York Times usually chooses a black writer and says this will be the black writer of the generation. Right, it was Toni Morrison at one point, even though there were all these other black writers, and now it's people like Zadie Smith, Colson Whitehead, Ta-Nehisi Coates. Right, but the issue with that is the idea that there can only be one of us at any one point, and these are going to be the people that the industry will back. But that, in the same turn, is just them analyzing the New York Times. There's so much going on Instagram right now. We were talking about bookstagrammers that have lifted me up, that have lifted Black Buck up, that has made this whole process of publishing a book that much more worth it to be able to meet and interact with these people. We've been having live conversations. They're reviewing books critically. They're reviewing books hilariously, in all their different ways, creatively. Some people dress up. Some people get their nails painted a certain color. Some people bake cakes, pair it with wines. I can't even start to name all the bookstagrammers because you know that I'm going to be forgetting a lot of people.
We're going to link everything. We're going to link your podcast, we'll link the bookstagrammers, everything, all the books you recommended, everything, without a doubt, man.
So to sum it up, anything that is promoting literature is incredible. I co-sign it, but we have to ensure that a wide variety of books are being promoted and consumed.
Dope. And that's a great way. My bro, I wish we could have this conversation for hours. Maybe when I start the podcast,
I would love that, bro.
Thank you so much,
man.
G.
Thank
really
you,
appreciate it. Appreciate the space. Thank you, bro. Like I said, if you're ever in Brooklyn, you need to check out the space. It's a nice area. There's places you can drink coffee, walk. Also, make sure you come in here and get some books, you know what I mean? As well, I just found out today that the owner of this shop, Emma Straub, her father is actually someone who's actually an iconic writer whose books I've read before, being a fan of Stephen King, and he recently passed away. So please, honor to his memory. His writing's still there, to a testament to his life and his legacy. And it's just, it makes this even more special to be able to come in a space like this and contribute towards the literary discussion. Hope you enjoyed the episode, people. Bless.